every single prayer request that God had answered for me, this would go all the way around the church, just of my praise reports. And if I wrote down everything that I prayed for, the same thing, it would go around twice. So I'm asking you to dig a little bit deeper, and even the example that you're showing for the kids in this Sunday school class, write your prayers for them. I mean, what if you had your grandmother's prayers on here? These kids have our prayers for them on there. What are you praying for Levi? What are you praying for Jesse? What are you praying for Adeline? What are you praying? They're going to see these and they're going to read these and they're going to know 20 years ago, Gigi prayed for me to go to church when I was older. She prayed for my kids. Just everything that you pray for, just write it down, and I'll get some more ready today. But just touch it. Just read it. Just feel it. And Becky's doing our Sunday school lesson this morning. So, Becky, ready for you. I'll just lay this here. Is that okay, Lisa, if I just lay it here?
You're going to start now.
Kim is here, we can begin.
That's it.
That is awesome.
Thank goodness.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
If y'all could just think and about kind of in relation to what Jim was just saying, actually, about something that you asked God for, and He gave it to you. He answered your prayer. If y'all would just, if you don't mind thinking about that through this time, and at the end, those that feel led, I would just really love it if you would be willing to share. It'll be a mess. Well, this lesson was just really good. It is something God knew that I needed to teach it. Okay, this is too big. Okay, so this is so good. I don't know. I hope y'all have enjoyed these lessons. Excuse me. On Elijah, and I have an Elijah now. And I've really never studied his life, but man, it's awesome. What a great guy. And what's really cool is, so I was looking at where Mary and Elijah are going to be living, and it's a lot of the story of Elijah is actually close to where they are going to be. And when I get to go there, I'm looking so forward to going and seeing a lot of this where these things took place, like Mount Carmel. I didn't realize it's going to be pretty close to you guys. And when Elijah really, God really did just such an awesome work through Elijah. But anyway, so this lesson is starting through prayer, and it just fits so well with all of this. And prayer, that is one thing. I think this church is full of love, and this church has. We have experienced the blessing of the prayers of this church a lot in our lives. It's the Walters are a testimony to this service of prayer, and what an honor to be able to teach today for y'all because of how y'all have blessed our family through prayer. Anyway, so here's Elijah. We've talked about how God had used him, and he's really been strong. God challenged him to go speak before Ahab just tell him, there's gonna be a drought. And, it just, God doesn't, there's always so many intricacies about God. It's so cool, like it's so personal. Because he took the drought in the area where the idols, Baal, those gods were the gods of fertility and, production, and they were supposed to be the gods that brought the rain and the harvest and all that. And God said, I'll show you. And he made sure he's really going to hit home with them. And I think Randy preached about Pharaoh and Egypt and how all of those plagues and all, which are fascinating, and I'd love to learn more about it. And I appreciate all he's taught us about it, just how it's really hit home, because those gods that they were worshiping, what God did to show himself really tested their unbelief, or their false beliefs and all. So God is just so good, because he speaks to us so individually, and he does that here too. So, okay, just again, Elijah was asked to do many things, and he's so obedient to God. He just is such a challenging, this is a challenge to me to just do what God says. So we're going to be back in 1 Kings. Oh, before that, there's a few extra scripture that I've asked if I can get volunteer just to look them up. 1 second. Can I get somebody to look at James 1, 2, 3, and 4? Thanks. And then Philippians 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
Thanks. And the last one is James 5, 16, 17, 18. James 5. Thanks, Bill. Okay, thank y'all. Whew. All right. So we're 1 Kings 17, verses 17 and 18. And remember, last week we talked about how what happened is Elijah went to actually where Jezebel was from, the land again that's very deep in idol worship, and they're worshiping Baal. And so God said, go there after the spring dried up. And it's an area that, they don't like him, because he's the one who told that there wouldn't be any rain. So it's a dangerous place for him to be. But on top of that, because it's like Sidon, I think, that's where Jezebel is from. Remember, that's, please don't ever name your daughters Jezebel, and you young people. Just so you know, I know sometimes these trendy names, and I'm like, oh, y'all know where she was. Anyway, so she was wicked, and she, not only did she try to lead people away from the Lord, she persecuted them. So anyway, in the land where she was from, that's where he said go. So it took courage for him to go, but then the widow and the son that the widow had that was about to die, and then God prepared the way for Elijah to go. And he said, don't make your cake, make it for me first, and then you'll have plenty for you and your son. And so they lived. So Elijah's still there at her house. And it took courage for this widow to take them in, y'all. I mean, because she's in the middle, enemy land, and he's not looked upon favorably there. So keep that in mind. Okay. And it came to pass after these things that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick. And his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. And she said unto Elijah, what have I to do with thee, O thou man of God? Art thou coming to me to call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? So he's been in the home with them, and you can imagine that they kind of have at least developed a relationship and a trust, right? She has to really trust him to let him stay there. And so the sickness comes upon her son. And again, in those days too, the son in economic sense, that's her only hope of survival. She was going to rely on him to help her to survive and to have what she needed. So here, I'm just thinking about me humanly, okay? I would go, okay, well, great. I took you in, I was trying to help you, and now look, my son is gone. And, you know, she has what I think are just natural human questions. She asked him, what have I to do to thee, O thou man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance, okay, and to slay my son? I just, again, human part, I think, when something bad happens, maybe it's just me, but then you try to, maybe in a lot of ways, figure things out, or question yourself, or can't help it. But now she's even wondering, okay, I don't know her past, but she obviously, God is working on her, and she's actually saying, is this because of my sin that this has happened? I mean, have you ever had something terrible happen and you begin to wonder why? I know I'm not the only one in this room that's done it. And sometimes it's just hard. Sometimes it's just hard. But this is a very encouraging story because it does get better. But let's look some more deeply. I'm sorry I'm all over the place, but y'all just bear with me. You can imagine Elijah living in a home is probably, she's seen some difference in him. She sees he's, well, first of all, God's provided a miracle already, right, where their food is not run out. So that's enough to make her go, this guy's different. But then you'd hope, there obviously is some kindness and some relationship, which we'll get into in a minute, because Elijah doesn't get mad at her when she says to him, what's going on here, why am I even let you live in my home? And I think this is just an example, too, of just life, Sometimes I think we hope that our life's going to be carefree and it's going to be easy, and it's just not. And, the fairy tale life that we all would love to have is just not. If we're going to love and serve the Lord, it's just not that way. Not that His blessings are not wonderful, but it's just, there's sickness. There's questions about many things that happen in our life, and it's just not always easy. I'm just going to read from the book here. It says, believers tend to think that if they put their confidence and trust in the Lord, if they follow His ways and walk faithfully with Him, then all will go well. They often conclude that somehow they will not experience significant setbacks or tragedies in life. However, blessings do not exempt the faithful from trials. Spiritual growth comes through the trials of life. And I'm sure we can all think about that. Just once you come through something, you do realize, okay, I did grow from that. It was really hard. And I still may have questions about it, but God was still good through it all. And so it's a hard lesson to sometimes gather. But now, I think, Biz, you have James 1, 2, 3, 4. Would you mind reading that?
Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him.
Yeah. So sometimes it's going to be hard sometimes, and we just have to go back to that. And that's enough. It is. It's hard, but it's enough. Something else to consider that I thought the book pointed out was really, really good. By providing for Elijah, this woman opposed the evil forces of Baalism. So Satan's assault on her should not come as a shock. Satan is going to try to trip us up at every turn. And so this woman actually was doing really good, right, by allowing Elijah to stay there. And, Satan, I'm sure, is throwing all kinds of things in her mind, as you can see from her questions. And so just keep that in mind, is that living a life that serves the Lord, it's not the easy path, but it's the best path. It's the path that's going to lead to true happiness and joy. God knows that we sometimes, and I'm just speaking from personal experience, that we just sometimes need some things taken from us or altered, and so that we'll know that He is the only source that we really need. do something for you that you want to do, He really can be enough. Okay. So this woman, anybody identify with her emotions from losing her son? I mean, she can directly blame Elijah, but his response is really, really good. So then she blamed him, then she looked at herself again. She's like, is this because of my sin, you know? And so she's actually trying to figure this out and make sense of it because of this terrible tragedy that's happened. And I'll read this last little part and we'll go on to the next set of scripture. When experiencing hardship, we tend to focus on our circumstances, which can draw our attention from the Lord, leading to increased pain in the form of despair, anger, resentment, and blame. God allows us to feel pain when trouble comes. A problem arises when we allow the pain to twist our thinking, causing us to respond inappropriately and do not see hardships as opportunities to draw near to God and to trust Him more. And that's the thing too, y'all. I think if we will use circumstances that God has brought us through, if we will just ask Him to bring beauty out of some ashes in your life. If you got some ashes in your life, some real pain, something that you walk through, God wants to help you help somebody else and to use that. And so I would just challenge you to think about that something that only He can bring beauty from, a pain, a difficult time. Just let Him do that because I think He relishes in that. I think that just makes Him so happy when something that Satan intended for good, that for bad, that He can just turn something really beautiful. Okay. The next, verse 19, chapter 17. And he said unto her, give me thy son. And he took him out of her bosom. And remember, he didn't say anything to her. He just took the son after she's obviously emotional and the firebrand that we know he is from other instances in life, right? Because of what God's asked that we saw before, that we'll see again in 1 Kings. And it's just neat to see how God, if we let Him, He can give us the response, the emotional responses that we need when we need them. I just was impressed by that He didn't. Okay, now hold on. Okay, so he took him out of her bosom and carried him up into a loft where he abode, and laid him upon his own bed. And he cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourn by slaying her son? Isn't that something that a prophet of God, I think this is so encouraging when we have hardships and struggles. Look at Elijah, what he's already witnessed. But he's being so honest with God because he knows God so well. And he stretched himself upon the child 3 times and cried unto the Lord and said, O Lord my God, I pray thee, let this child's soul come into him again. So, who's got Philippians chapter 2, 3, and 4? Lisa, thank you. Would you read that, please?
Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others.
So, Elijah really did that in that moment. You know, he realized how brokenhearted she was and thought about her. And I think God, He knew this was going to be not only affect just such a great way for Him to get glory now and then even later, because Elisha does something like this too, which I think is really cool. But we'll get to that in a second. So, you can imagine, she's a widow, her son just died, she's scared because she's got this guy living in her house that could probably get her killed, and then this happens. So I could just imagine what she's feeling. So Elijah takes the child upstairs to the room that he's living upstairs on the roof in this little separate room. And then he's crying out to God, and he asks, "Oh Lord my God, hast thou also brought evil upon the widow with whom I sojourn by slaying her son?" I just think sometimes, and I'll just tell you this, just when we had a wreck and it was hard, sometimes people just need to tell you it's hard. And you don't need to give them an answer. They just really need you to hear that it's hard. I think sometimes as Christians, and believe me, y'all all pointed us all back to God. This family, but specifically me, different people, when I needed to hear it, when I was either at a pity party or something, now that's important. But when people are having a hard time, sometimes you just need to listen and just say, "I'm really sorry." And you don't need to tell them, you don't have to have the answer. I don't know who needs to hear that today, but I'm just telling you, sometimes they just need you to acknowledge that you're hurt. And it's hard. So, I tell you, y'all, one time it was just like at a point I was having, I don't know if everybody knows my story. I had a wreck, my hand was bad, and I had many surgeries, but I had this machine that I used to wear. Here, y'all remember the machine? Probably heard it during the church service, that would work my fingers back and forth because I was trying to get it to where it would have enough range of motion to have surgery to replace tendons in it. That wasn't God's plan, but I was having a hard time. I was walking out the door, and Charles Holcomb was about 3 or 4 people in front of me. He wasn't even right in front of me. And he and Margie were walking out, and he just stopped, and he turned around, and he looked right at me, and he had to look through more than there's people in front of him, and it was for me. But he just said, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And that's all he said to me. And I just nodded, and I started to cry. I'm sure I did. Because I needed to just be reminded, okay, I know you don't want to go to therapy tomorrow. I know you don't want to wear this stupid thing on your hand anymore. But he gave me that little, it was right, I'll never forget it. It's right out there to the left on the porch. And I was like, "You're right. I'll be okay. I just need a little bit something sometimes to get through it." And God gives us what we need when we need it. And things are not always going to be easy. They're going to be hard. But if we allow Him to use us in our pain and in our brokenness, we can do really, really good things to help people. So, and if you guys have anything to add, please jump in here. I know I am all over the place today. I just got a lot out of this. Elijah was candid with God. And I think, me personally, I just didn't think I could be so candid with God. And it took a really bad this happening to me to realize I can actually be candid with God. I felt like I couldn't really be honest about, it must be your will, and that's true, and I've accepted His will, but you just gotta sometimes just walk through the muck and just, sit there for a little bit and deal with it, and then He can use it. And I'm finally, sadly, August 13th will be 20 years. I cannot believe that we have the red, but 20 years, and I really want Him to use me. I still understand it, still question it, but I really want something really good to come out of it, because I struggle to see good coming out of it, I'll be honest with you. Besides the fact that Tate is good. I don't know if y'all know that, and I was hoping she would show up for this part of it. I wanted to just testify to that. She's late. I was late too. She's later. So I was pregnant with her when we had the wreck. And when it was, we could have lost her easily. They had to like do magnesium wash because I went to labor and they shut all that down. And I tell y'all this just again, just to thank you for the prayers, because I have no doubt she survived. Not only that, but she's pretty, I mean, we know she's a little odd, but she's normal. Because I was on morphine, because it was bad. I was on morphine for almost a whole, I don't know, Todd, was it 3 weeks? I finally was like, I was worried about being pregnant with her. I had 4 surgeries with her too, but pregnant with her with all that medicine, because, you know, it was in the middle of pregnancy or when so much was developing. I was scared to keep taking this stuff, but my hand hurt. And, you know, they knew what I needed, so I trusted them, but it was just hard. And so I remember even when she was born, taking her to her first checkup, and asked the pediatrician, I'm like, okay, so let's do a test to make sure she's all good. And he goes, there's not such a test. We will just have to watch her as she grows and as she develops. And I was just like, you know, me in my little brain, the way I would check things off, okay, that was God, you know, another, Becky's got to wait, you got to trust me. And again, you know, y'all just carried us through that time with prayer. And I just know with y'all's prayers that we have a healthy girl today. And I just thank y'all so much for that. Not only that, but the other kids were in the wreck too, and it was a traumatic experience for them. And you know, they're all good. I'm just thankful for how y'all just, not only that, you pray and you love this, and you just, y'all just helped us through really hard times. I really appreciate it. So prayer is so important. So important. And I'm about to have a couple leave the country that I really need y'all to pray for too. And I know you will, and that makes me feel so good and confident. It really does. That they have got y'all just praying for them. Thank you so much. Okay, so anyway, righteous praise. And this is the first time there's actually a resurrection in the Bible. Isn't that cool? I mean, so Elijah had never seen anyone resurrected, but he had the faith in God. Well, first of all, he had the trust and the knowledge of who God really was, that he could first of all say, I don't get this. But then he had the knowledge of God to know you can do anything. So he asked God to revive this young man, and he does. He does. So let's go, Lord. I don't know I've rambled. Okay. Let's first, though, James 5, 16, 17, 18. Phil, would you read that?
Yeah. Confess your faults one to another and pray one for another that you may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of the righteous man availeth much. Elias was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain, and it rained not on the earth by the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heaven gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit.
So we all know how great Elijah was and how he's referenced so many times in the Bible, but I think that's so cool, you know, when we can be reminded again of God's power through somebody who's willing to be used by God and how God helped him. I'll read this from the book because I think this is so powerful too. Praying with others has its place, but it does not substitute for praying alone. You know, Elijah took the child up by himself and talked to God. And it's the same, you know, it's just so important that we have that lifeline, and it really is a lifeline. Have that time with God that only you and He can have, and it's going to be so beautiful. So beautiful. And this sets me back on track when I'm off track. If I really would, and if I can just be willing to put everything else aside and do that, it's just such a peaceful, wonderful place to be. So, but Elijah knew. He knew where to go, right to God. And then the Lord heard the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. And Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the chamber into the house, and delivered him unto his mother. And Elijah said, See, thy son liveth. And the woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in thy mouth is truth. There's a lot, in this. So, God answers Elijah, which I can't imagine. And Elijah believed he could do it, but still, to actually see that, can you imagine how that must have felt for Elijah? And how God used that later in Elijah's ministry. He would take him back to that, remember. And I think probably if you think about your own life, there's times when God wants us all to be able to go back and remember, I've taken care of you. Remember what I can do. So that's why I want y'all to think about a time. If you're willing to share at the end, I'd love to hear something that God answered a prayer for you, and He heard you. So it's so cool too. It goes back to like Genesis when God made man and He breathed from the dust of the ground and He breathed life into him. Elijah 3 times. Later on top of him in the book does say maybe he did, put his mouth, and I think Elisha does that with the Shunammite woman son. It's a very similar situation. And again, I just think about Elijah impacted Elisha. And don't you know he told him this story? I just bet he told him, God, look what God did. And so when something like this happened with Elisha, he had the courage to believe God. So we can do the same. If we can just testify to others what God has done, what an impact we can make on others that can maybe help lift them up in a moment that they need it. Okay, let's see. Isn't it sweet too? The woman said to Elijah, Now by this I know that thou art a man of God, and that the word of the Lord in thy mouth is truth. So look at the power. God using a difficult situation, a terrible tragedy, and a great miracle for this woman. And I don't know, y'all, if there's any more about her life in the Bible, but I imagine she has to tell other people about this. In a land of false idols and Baal worship, which was horrific stuff that they did. So she probably, I would like to think that God used her and her son to maybe tell others about the true God. But she says, this confirmed to her, he's a man of God. And the Bible, look at that, it's a big G. Now remember, she's living in a land of all kinds of crazy idols that they have tons of different types of gods. So she realized there is one God. There's only one, and it's the true God. And so sometimes God uses difficult things to help. There's a purpose. There's a purpose. And I think it's a good reminder that sometimes, I'm still asking God that all the time. Okay, I don't like what happened to me. I don't like that I can't use my hand. But, okay, use me. Whatever. I'll be a vessel for you. I don't know. I don't see the good. But I want there to be good out of it. So, somehow use me. And I think if God, there have been so many times, even like people in the church, like Norma Jean, just times, there's people that have walked through things that look at you, Lucy, can look at you and tell you, you're gonna be okay. That just is such a powerful, it's like a boost that you need sometimes. And we just have to be willing to be that to somebody. So look what God did, brought a terrible situation. But the prayer of Elijah, which I'm getting, that's the point, is that we intercede for others in prayer that can make such an eternal difference. And physical difference, and, life on earth difference too. So our prayers are so very important for other people. And so just like Jenny was, this is so important to our young people, to teach them that. This is a tangible thing, which it's not just kids that need tangible things. We need tangible things too. God knows what we need. But this is a really wonderful, thank you, Lisa, for that. It's just such a good way to teach them who God is, and that we go to Him and we ask Him for things. So when we intercede for others in prayer, we can likewise join with God in restoring lives and leading people to Christ. And that's what we're here for. Okay, I've talked a lot. I probably haven't made a lot of sense, but has anybody got anything to say or add?
I just love the fact that it's a great example of that intercessory prayer of Elijah going to pray for this child, and just how powerful that is, and just how important it is in our life. A lot of times, even though we may go to God and think, okay, I'm not going to share this with anyone, but sharing with others and having the church pray for you is 100 times better or more powerful. And I can just give the example of the accident. When I got the phone call that my family's been in an accident, I just started calling everyone I knew to start praying. And it's amazing the power and just how, as much went wrong, how much went right. And just the peace. And then I know it's because of the people praying for you and all of our kids. And, we didn't know what her name was Tate, but for the baby. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a great example of just how powerful, and just having the church and having so many people pray for you and the difference.
It carried us through all this. I'm living, breathing testimony of it. It carried us through, and I know it carried me through some just tough times, tough moments. So I really appreciated and let you know it made a difference. So thank you. Anybody feeling led to share maybe where God has answered prayer for you, or really stepped in when you needed Him?
Yeah, when I was feeling called to go to South Africa, that was something that I felt was very clearly from the Lord, but as I think it is always when the Lord asks you to do something, you don't know how He's going to be able to make it work because you don't have enough yourself to make it work. So I knew it would be something I'd have to raise money for and save up for, because I didn't have enough money to do it myself. And so I just started praying as soon as it was supposed to happen. Like, okay, Lord, if you want me to do this, you're gonna have to pave the way, because I don't have enough to do it myself. And then kind of just same thing. I mean, God answered. I know y'all were praying for me, and God answered my prayers through y'all. And I started selling T-shirts, and so many of y'all were so wonderful to buy T-shirts and just to donate and to pray for me. And people were so generous. I know that it was all prompted from the Holy Spirit, but I mean, I had people buy my plane tickets, so I didn't have to worry about that. And then y'all were so supportive that I was able to raise more than enough, not only for me to go and to get there, but to to get everything I needed once I was there, and to buy things for the kids and to do things with them. And I know that y'all were lifting me up while I was there, because it was very hard to be so isolated and to be gone for so long, but I could feel the prayers, and kind of the same thing that Mom and Dad were saying, when people are praying for you, you do have a peace. Even though you are uncomfortable and you are scared at times, you do have a peace that can only come from people praying for you. And so I know that that trip is the product of answered prayers, and so I'm very thankful for that. And I know that trip impacted not only just me, I know it impacted y'all, and I know that it impacted the kids that I was able to meet. And I'm still very thankful for it. I think about it all the time. So thank you all for being responsive to the Holy Spirit prompting you, and for the ways that you supported me, because it still makes a difference in me, and hopefully to the people there.
Anybody else?
Gosh, I have so many, times that I can thank God for bringing me through. And the one thing that just stands out, you know, when you're going through something that you think can break you, but He still provides that peace. And I just thank Him for that. And I really desire prayers for my sister-in-law, Lisa. They didn't get the results this week that they would like to have. And she will start cancer or start chemo this week. So y'all just lift her up and help carry her through this hardship. And my brother Timmy, they're heartbroken, but they're faithful and strong. So just remember them and their the two boys.
Thank you. Anybody else? We'll definitely be praying for it.
It's answered prayer for me just to see these young people here, because we prayed so hard for them when they were in their fire. Just prayed for them every day that they would grow up to be godly adults, and they are. And I'm just so thankful that they're here, and Greg playing the piano, and everybody working. It's just a blessing. And that Nathan can see, and Donnie can walk, and Wyatt's here. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Anybody else? You can help somebody, maybe.
Elijah and I have been praying for a long time about church over in Israel and connections over in Israel. In the last month, God has just paved the way in that area with connections and different people that we know we can reach out to. And we thought it would be a lot more difficult, but God has definitely had us in that area, and just more and more connections and people we can reach out to, and different ministries and things over there are just pouring in these last couple of weeks, and it's just really clear that God has us as we start this journey.
You feel better? Does that answer the prayer for me too?
I think it's important to note too that even Elijah didn't give an immediate response the first time he prayed. The Bible said he prayed 3 different times. And I don't think it's because God didn't hear him the first 2 times. It's because that's for us. And he revived the child on the 3rd prayer. Jesus was raised in 3 days.
Includes this, right? Includes this. Thank you. Anybody else? Or anything you want to say, or anything? challenges for us. It says, pray right now for someone you know who is in need physically or spiritually. Trust God to answer. It challenges us to begin a prayer journal to list the needs of others and use it in their daily quiet time and update it with answers God provides. And then it says we should pray with others. Start a prayer group at your church, work, or with your neighbors. Invite others to pray with you for needs in your community and around the world. So prayer is so important. It's important for us to stay connected to the Lord and to help Him remind us of really that He's got us, and it's also important for us to pray for each other. And I love that we can do that and share with one another our burdens. And I want to make sure I give time, Jenny, for what else needs to be done. Well, I have a few here, I guess, we're stuck in this book, if anybody wants them to add to the prayer chain.
Yeah, I don't have anything else. The kids love to staple home, so, just everybody fill it out today, and we'll give them, just leave them in the back, I guess. and
Okay.
they can do it next week.
So pick them up out there, or just,
Yeah, I'll put some empty ones, some
Okay.
blank ones up there.
anybody else? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.